This is the Rethink Podcast, where we talk to people who challenge the status quo and who are reshaping, reigniting, and rethinking the economy through health innovation. Please welcome your host, Sanj Singh.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Today, I welcome you to another episode of Rethink. We have today the pleasure of talking to CEO and founder of Luxonic, Mike Wesolowski. I've known Mike for some time. He sat on our Health Opportunities Committee at the Saskatoon Chamber, and he's doing some amazing things, transformative things in the world of what some people, may call space age, maybe from the Star Trek days, but in the whole idea of virtual reality and immersive technologies that I think COVID has highlighted, that this is something that we have to rethink on how we do things and deliver things. And, so I just want to welcome Mike to the podcast today. Thanks for taking the time to do this. Maybe you want to maybe we'll start with Mike, just on giving the audience members a little bit of your background, and then, what got you into this space, and just give a quick history on, where you started and then where you are today, and then where you want to go. And then we're just going to dive into what immersive technologies is and the possibilities. And really the topic today is going to be about building a medical device company in the prairies. And you may be the first one. If I'm not mistaken, I'm not sure we know of any others that have, at least in this space, and no pun intended, because I see the thing on the back on your wall. Anyhow, welcome, Mike, to Rethink Podcast, and good to have you here today.
Thanks so much, Sanj. It's a pleasure to be here. It's always good to talk to you, and I'm really excited to talk about what we've been doing, but also in general about health technologies and building companies in the prairies. So happy to be here.
Yeah, let's start with Mike, your background. And
sure,
just tell us a little bit how that landed you into this world, and also the name behind the company Luxonic, how that came to be and what that represents.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been around radiology my entire life. So my father is a retired specialist in nuclear medicine. So I grew up around positron emission tomography and learning about bone density scans, and actually, sitting in my father's reading room with him, watching him, hang films and look at medical images. And so I have really fond, vivid memories of watching him work. And, it was early on when I realized that this amazing technology that he was using, this kind of space age technology, was being used to help people, and that sparked something in me early on. I went on from there, grew up, pursued an academic career in physics. So I graduated from the University of Waterloo with a PhD in physics, and then was considering being an academic. Did a postdoctoral fellowship, applied here at the University of Saskatchewan, in the medical imaging department, with Dr. Paul Babin, and had a great opportunity to sort of close that loop, where starting off with my father looking at bone density scans, and then actually having an academic career in medical imaging. During that time, that desire to use technology and that idea of using technology to help people was really starting to resonate with me during my postdoc. And I was remembering that, hey, I actually, at one point in my life, I really wanted to start a research company and start, using technology for good. And so with a colleague of mine, started Luxonic during my postdoctoral fellowship. And the name, as you suggested, does have some meaning there. In medical imaging, we use two forms of energy, really, light and sound. And so Luxonic means, lux for light and sound, sonic for sound. So Luxonic is a combination of light and sound. which are the two main things that we use in medical imaging to generate medical images. So
yeah, you know, it's interesting. You mentioned that you had the idea of this company in your postdoc. That's highly unusual because most postdocs that I've come across are looking for the next postdoc until they find that rare academic position that opens up, which you know, is getting less and less these days. So what was the impetus for the entrepreneurial side that kind of piqued you? And what year are we talking about that this kind of, I guess, eureka moment, or if you want to call it that? Everybody thinks it's a eureka moment, but so many steps have led up to it. What year are we talking about time frame wise?
Yeah, so the year was 2014 when we started the company. And really it was started off the side of my desk to be able to pursue different ideas than I could pursue during the postdoc. You know, it's a good question. Why did I consider this entrepreneurial journey? As I mentioned, you know, growing up, some of my heroes were, you know, the Edisons and the Teslas of the world, and you know, these inventors.
And we're talking Tesla, the physicist, not
not the car
company.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So those people, you know, and then seeing in physics, really seeing how many physicists and engineers are really responsible for our entire modern society, right? And seeing how those technologies translated from the lab into products that completely shaped society, I think always was in the back of my mind. And then you're right, you know, there is a dark side to academia that a lot of people don't necessarily talk about, and that's that postdoctoral cycle and the fact that when we start our training, no one really tells you that you have a 10% shot at a professorship, right? I mean, that's just the reality of the situation. 10% of PhDs move on to being professors because
and let me ask you that, you know, low, right? Yeah. So not only that, but think about for genders here.
Yeah.
And I would suspect that any other gender than male has even a lower chance of,
depending on the field. Absolutely. Yeah. So it's, you know, it's, there's a low shot to begin with, which no one really talks about. And then, you know, to be perfectly honest, some of, you know, I got to experience during my postdoc a lot of the administrative and other types of burdens that are put on professors. And it was really something that I was less and less interested in pursuing the further I got into my postdoc. I mean, I love research, I love mentorship. Those things are, you know, are sort of core to what makes me happy. But understanding how that changes when you become a professor and how you have to be pulled away from that to, you know, for shifting responsibilities, it just became less interesting. And so when we started Luxonic, I was still considering becoming an academic, but by the time I finished my postdoc, in a year later, you know, I had sort of decided that, hey, let's make this Luxonic thing, you know, let's give it a try, because we had gone through a business development competition here at the what was formerly the ILO at the University of Saskatchewan, and we did fairly well in that business development competition, and really that entrepreneurial spark, that bug was planted, and I just decided to pursue it. You know, well, I really love doing it.
Yeah, I guess we can call it the virus. Keep it in the theme of current day. So let's talk about Luxonic. Tell us, you know, tell the audience members here a little bit about what it is.
Yeah.
And the technology behind it, and what problems you're looking to solve.
So our global mission is really to improve access to healthcare using immersive technologies. You know, we work primarily with the healthcare industry We're not a B2C company. We are a B2B company. And we develop immersive tools that help solve problems in three key areas in healthcare: medical education, hands-on professional training, and healthcare delivery. So that's very high level what we do. We're all coming from a healthcare background in one way or another. And identifying problems, as you mentioned, within healthcare is really important, because I think whenever you're developing a product, you need to start with the problem. If you're starting with an idea, a solution without a problem, it's not going to be adopted. So the first thing that we try and understand are the problems that are affecting both healthcare professionals and patients. And from there, if immersive technologies are a fit to solve that problem, then we'll start thinking about how we can use this new technology to solve problems. And for those in the audience who aren't familiar necessarily with immersive technology, when we're talking about immersive, we're talking about virtual reality, augmented reality, and mixed reality. And
it's like the Call of Duty. I mean, so for those who play video games or Context or the things you basically put on your goggles, and you're basically put into an environment, right? Where in the case of video games, you're playing the game. It seems quite real.
Yeah.
So talk in that context for people to understand what's the, if you pick one of those streams, education, or the healthcare delivery, which one, pick one of those as an example to kind of showcase what the potential of not only immersive technologies are, but also what Luxonic is bringing to the table.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk about professional training. So when you put a VR headset on, that's
virtual reality for the.
That's right.
Because I know that the world of healthcare, there's a lot of acronyms.
A lot of acronyms.
And so we'll put the definitions out as we. Yeah, and it's an old technology. It's not a.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been around for since Star Trek days. I mean, I think they imagined that, right? So. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and this isn't even the first consumer go for virtual reality. I was around in the 90s, early 90s, late 80s, when the first consumer virtual reality headsets were released. And really, the power of virtual reality and VR is it transports you to a completely digital world. So you feel present in that world. You can interact with that world in a way that we can interact with the real world. The benefit for medical training is that we can create simulated environments, clinical environments, and clinical scenarios, and have the user experience those scenarios in virtual reality in a safe way. So there's no potential for harming a patient or harming, another trainee. And we can do it in a very low cost way. So setting up a simulation lab can cost millions of dollars and can cost millions of dollars to operate. Whereas a virtual reality headset can cost $1,000 or less.
Yeah, so you're going from hardware to software. I mean,
exactly. Right? Yeah, we're basically creating digital twins of clinical environments and having the users be able to interact with those digital twins. And you can do that collaboratively in the virtual world. So you can bring people together from anywhere in the physical world. So addressing things like the inequality in access to healthcare training is something that we're really big on, because with this technology, we can provide high fidelity training in a remote and rural setting. And we can connect that remote and rural setting to people in an urban setting, to experts from anywhere in the world. So I think that's the real power of the technology, is access and distribution and that presence, feeling present in that virtual world. And we see, honestly, we see those benefits. people learn faster in virtual reality than a classroom setting. They're more connected to the content that they're learning, and their retention is better. So there are tangible benefits for using this technology.
Yeah, but if you can maybe touch on a recent work that's got you guys excited, because I think that'll give a deeper flavor to the audience members out there who may say, wait a minute, this could be applicable in our situation.
Yeah.
And then we can talk about how, somebody can contact you and, get some more information on that. But yeah, if you could share an example, if you're able to on that.
Yeah, happy to. So on the training side, there's a great example. We're currently working with paramedic regulatory bodies in Canada. So every healthcare profession is, and I think there are 26 regulated healthcare professions in Canada. So that means that there is a regulatory body that governs that profession, both on the provincial level and on the national level. So we're working with paramedic regulators across Canada to develop a competency evaluation in virtual reality. So what does that mean? It means that the paramedic regulators can actually assess the hands-on skills of applicants who are either within the province or coming from a different country, for example, who may want to work as a paramedic, get licensed. Yeah, exactly. So right now, if we have sort of a foreign trained paramedic, they would actually have to come to Canada. Maybe they have the skills, maybe they don't. We don't know. They don't know. So what we can do with our system is we can just literally ship a headset anywhere in the world. They can go through the competency assessment. The paramedic regulator can then have that information ready for when they apply. And the paramedic themselves, they will know whether they, have the skills to be licensed in Canada, or whether they may need a bridging program or something else before they even step foot in the country. So it's a powerful thing to think about, that we can really, connect people from anywhere in the world, assess their skills, provide them with training, and address a critical need here in Saskatchewan. We have a shortage of paramedics across Canada. So bringing foreign trained paramedics into the country is actually really important. So,
well, I see a benefit on both sides. So, for the individuals that are overseas that are looking to make the transition, as an immigrant to this country 48 years ago, my parents took a lot of risk coming from another country. They were in England at the time to come to Canada. And as medical professionals, they gave exemption to my father, who was a psychiatrist, because they needed psychiatrists. And he was British trained, which, was a little bit easier. But I can see, just due to either, war or famine or economic collapse in countries around the world, where you have potentially talented people who are looking for a better life for themselves and their families, without taking that huge risk of shutting everything down and coming to another country, which, airfare wise is not cheap, to find out if they can actually get a job here or qualify, to be able to do it from their home country and also train while they're there, I think is, you talk about a value add, that's phenomenal. What does it take, Mike, to, with the keeping with this paramedic regulator, how did it come about? Did they contact you, or did you contact them, or was it a mutual thing? And then also, can you touch on what kind of programming that has to go in and validation of those tools?
Yeah, absolutely. So we were actually introduced to the paramedic regulators through another regulatory body we were working with. So we've been working with the Saskatchewan Society for Medical Laboratory Technologists, and we had replied to an RFP that they had put out for training, and we were successful in that RFP. And then word started spreading to other regulatory bodies, and so we began working with the Saskatchewan College of Paramedics, again through an RFP, but it was there was an introduction through the other regulatory body we were working with. And to answer your other question about what it takes, so first of all, this is a regulated profession, so competency evaluation is something that they do already, but to perform a competency evaluation in the physical world is extremely expensive and time consuming. So we're lucky in the sense that we're starting from the national competency guidelines, and from there we have to translate those guidelines into the digital world. And that's what takes an extremely talented team, and it requires working with subject matter experts. So before we write a line of code, we have a very detailed scoping process that we go through with these regulators, and that can take months, honestly, depending on the scope and the size of the project. So in this case, where we're building out a full competency evaluation for clinical skills, it just for a single module, for example, for an airways clearance module, it can take a month to do the scoping, where we work hand in hand with subject matter experts. We have a project manager, coordinators, designers, developers, and 3D modelers who are all working together during that scoping session, or those scoping sessions, to help define a virtual environment and the interactions within that environment.
Yeah, it can be let's just say a systematic process that needs checks and balances, validation, testing,
exactly,
and so forth, to ensure that it's measuring the things that the competency rubric has. Talk about, I'd like to really focus on where you want to take the company and some of the rate limiting factors, but also the opportunities. And then as well, what are some of the things that, in the prairies people can do to help? I always know that, companies that set up in the prairies do it for, let's say, kind of the Rider Nation mentality. They're saying, hey, I'm from the prairies, we're proud of it, and we want to build companies here, we want to create employment here, and make a name. But at the same time, there's a reality in scaling, access to capital, and so forth. So talk a little bit about where you want to take your company, what some of the rate limiting factors are, and what, the community around here can do to help you, to accomplish your objectives.
Yeah, you bring up a lot of good points there, Sanj. As a company in healthcare, Saskatchewan is a great place a great test bed, but we have, our market is global. And if you look around the world, we've got basically half the world's population doesn't have access to basic healthcare at all. It's about 4 billion people have no access to modern healthcare. So that's where we want to be. In the long term, we want to be a global company that's improving access to healthcare around the world. We're already growing across Canada and into the US. We've got partnerships with Cleveland Clinic, with Mass General Hospital. We've got sales across Canada and starting in the US. But it takes a lot, to your point, to build a health technology company, especially one that's not a consumer company. Sales cycles in healthcare are 18 to 24 months. It's a long sales cycle. And
those
so
are
you need,
paleontology terms.
yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah.
It's a long sales cycle. And if you're using a regulated device, so one of our products is actually regulated by Health Canada. You need to get authorization to use that as a medical device. Our CBER platform, which is for diagnostic radiology, is a regulated healthcare device. We had to go through Health Canada approval, authorization to sell it as a Class 2
I was going to
device.
say what class, yeah. So Class 2 devices are, maybe just define that from a regulatory perspective. It's somewhat, because you're making some decisions off it, right? So
exactly. So we're making decisions on and diagnosis, from medical images. So it's a non-invasive device, but there are still decisions that are based off of medical images that really can affect patient health. In fact, medical images are used to diagnose and monitor hundreds of conditions, traumas, and diseases. So, it's extremely important that we follow regulations and guidelines in healthcare when we're developing a device that can have an impact on patient health.
Now, does that cycle, that sales cycle, the regulated cycle, does that now impact the financing? And obviously
100%.
we know it does. And so what are the ways to address that you would like to see, at least around here? I know the capital is available around the world for this, whether it's through strategic partnerships or other methods. But what could we do specifically here to play our part, in not necessarily providing all of the capital that you need, but to, let's just say, have skin in the game to support a prairie, desires to build a medical device company on the prairies. What is it that we could do around here to help support companies like yours and others?
Well, I think, I will say that from the non-dilutive government funding perspective, we're doing pretty well. Like we've had great supports from IRAP. And
IRAP, again, is the Industrial Research Assistance Program. It's a federal program, for those that don't know, that provides support for R&D. It covers salaries and other things. It's a great program. I've used it in the past with some other companies.
Yeah, so I will say, on the federal level through IRAP, we have had fantastic support so far. That being said, financing in healthcare, venture capital in healthcare, I think you kind of need to have people who are coming from healthcare establishing venture for healthcare. Because if you have a more general venture capital fund, as you mentioned, their expectations are completely outside of the realm of, a medical device and what we can do as a medical device company. A lot of venture capital, general venture capital, is looking for, big wins very fast, consumer applications that can scale very quickly, looking for that hockey stick curve of growth. That's just very, very difficult to achieve for enterprise healthcare. I mean, we can see phenomenal growth, but it takes time, and it is regulated, and that can put off some venture, that is more interested in faster growth and more consumer related products. So what can we do? What can we do here? I think we have to show success, first of all. What
does that look like? Let's talk about, success means different things to different people. So, I mean, the fact that, look, I've looked at the, your company, number one. Some of the collaborations you mentioned, Mass General, Cleveland Clinic, these aren't, I would say Mickey Mouse organizations, but that's like a multi-billion-dollar organization now. But they're well-known institutions. You also have, your scientific advisory board, and some of the people that have joined you are some of the, they've got a pretty good pedigree.
Yep.
And you've been able to attract them internationally to your organization here. Has that helped in raising the profile? And I'm talking in the prairies. I know that you've been busy doing these types of podcasts and meetings across different platforms and featured in different things around the world. But a lot of people maybe not even know in your own backyard, if I can use that term.
Yeah.
I mean, is that something that has helped you locally, or has that really been kind of like water off a duck's back for people here going, well, we don't get it, so, good luck?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say, to be honest. To your point, we have former C-class executives from Philips Healthcare on our leadership team. These are people who had billions of dollars, at their disposal, and we're shaping, massive international companies. Mm-hmm. They're helping lead our team, and I think we tend not to brag here on the prairies, and I think as Canadians in general, we sort of don't necessarily call attention to all of the success that we've been having, and I think that might be to our detriment. But certainly, I think I would say we're more well known outside of Saskatchewan than we are inside of Saskatchewan, and I don't think that's by design, but it's I guess. I don't know. I don't necessarily like to toot my own horn very much, but we are doing some phenomenal things, and that's why I'm trying to, engage more and really try and show that we've, the success that we've been having, because we've grown from a team of 2 people. We're over 20 now, distributed across North America. So. We continue to grow, and I think that is a good story to tell, and I'm starting to get comfortable telling it.
Well, and this Rethink platform really is to give opportunities to companies like yours, Mike, and others, a platform to showcase to the distribution list that we have what some of these companies are doing in Saskatchewan and in the prairie. So, but where's the field? Is it if you can describe in that growth curve?
Yeah.
And what are the thought leaders saying about where you can see this technology being deployed in what aspects of our world?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a fantastic question. I would say we've crossed the chasm. I think there was a lot of excitement and novelty in 2014, 2015, 2016 when we had the first launch of the new Oculus system, and there was a lot of excitement, a lot of novelty, and applications started being built, but there was a lot of failure as well. I think now we're starting, especially. It's being accelerated by COVID, to be perfectly honest with you. We're coming out of that trough into deeper problem solving, into integration within the healthcare system, as opposed to here's a one-off, here's a pilot project. Now we're starting to see integration and real usage within healthcare, whether that's on the education side or on the training side or on the delivery side. In all of those areas, we're starting to see more and more adoption and usage. So I would say we're at the early stage of the growth phase. And it's an exciting time. We're seeing applications for this across healthcare. Surgical training has been a big one, but digital therapeutics are huge, and we're starting to see regulators catch up to the digital therapeutic in the VR space now. We're starting to see digital therapeutics be accepted for sale in the US and Canada. And I think technologies like ours with CVERT getting approval or authorization from Health Canada, it's a huge step towards real integration into healthcare, and we need that, because otherwise it's a novelty and it gets put on a shelf. If we're not really truly integrating with the healthcare system and all of the complexity within the healthcare system, then you're not really building a medical device.
Yeah, you're just in the prairies. What a medical device company. Yeah, Mike, this has been, first of all, thank you for taking the time and explaining, the story behind Luxonic, the light and the sound coming together, which is fantastic. Courageous part for you, postdoc, starting a company. I'm sure you have a family, and that's not always easy choice. You need a supporting partner, understanding partner, right?
Absolutely.
Because things can happen, there's a lot of uncertainty and ambiguity. At the same time, I sense, it seems like, the work that you have done prior to, saying this is in the early growth phase, and the partnerships that you have built, the people that you've attracted, this has been really a lot of your work to do this and foresight. I think it sounds like you're going to be well positioned, and having these contracts with the professional training and the education and so forth, and healthcare delivery. I think people are looking in the United States as cost containment. In the third world, emerging world, developing world, it's access at low cost, and quality care, quality outcomes. So you have driving forces going on in different parts of the world, whether developed or not, that has a place, sounds like, for this type of technology platform. And it's, so, I really want to thank you for sharing the work you've been doing. I hope that the audience here got a sense of, really the huge potential you have globally, and look to see how we can support your growth. And when this podcast does go out to all those members, how can somebody get a hold of you, Mike? We'll put it up on the screen, but if you can, provide, your web address, email address, or how you want people to contact Luxonic if they're interested, or being an investor, being, a partner, being a customer, how do they get in touch with you?
Absolutely. So you can visit luxonic.ca. That's luxsonic.ca. Or email us directly at info@luxonic.ca. We are more than happy to, talk to potential customers or investors, or if you're just interested in the technology, happy to have a conversation and talk about what we're doing.
Awesome. This is really, thank you for attending this episode of Rethink, Mike. And you are completely rethinking all of these areas. And I'm sure healthcare is not the only sector where these technologies are being utilized. You've chosen to focus on that since your childhood days of reading your dad's images. Hopefully that passed a privacy officer. Since my wife was a privacy officer for the health authority, and schooled me on what do's and don'ts are. However, if it helped to create an entrepreneur, no harm done. So again, thank you for your time, Mike, and best of luck. And we'll be here supporting you as much as we can.
Thanks so much, Sanj.